Hi everyone. In this video, we're going to be discussing this question of what exactly is a miracle. In this video, we're going to start by reviewing the argument for miracles and then looking at some competing conceptions of this idea of a miracle. We'll look at conceptions that think of them as unexpected, surprising, or lucky events. We'll look at conceptions that think of them as awe-inspiring events. We'll look at conceptions that think of them as supernaturally caused events. We'll look at conceptions of them as violations of natural law and conceptions of them as events that lack any natural explanation. All right, so remember, the argument for miracles essentially says that some miracles have happened. We have all this sort of testimony from sort of history of these miracles. Well, if some miracles have happened, then God exists. Therefore, God exists. Now, usually the argument for miracles is meant not just to establish that God exists, but that a particular God exists, that a particular religious tradition is true. So, but what would it mean for an event to be a miracle? Sometimes we use the word miracle to refer to somewhat ordinary events, but we just find them, say, unexpected, surprising, or lucky events. As a few examples here. So a person is diagnosed with cancer, and the doctor gives them 6 months to live. Nonetheless, the person's cancer somehow goes into remission, and they end up living another 25 years. So that was rather unexpected. It was rather lucky. It was rather surprising. We might say it was a miracle that their sort of cancer went away. Or a person is going bankrupt, and they're about to lose their home, and then they win the lottery. We might say it was a miracle. It sort of saved them in this sort of way. It was rather lucky that this happened. It was unexpected and surprising. Also, there's another common usage of the word miracle to refer to awe-inspiring events. So we sometimes use this word to refer to events that cause us to experience a feeling of wonder or awe. So it's an event that we find to be awe-inspiring in this way. So some examples of this usage of the word. When people say, they talk about the miracle of childbirth. When they think about or they witness childbirth, it sort of causes them to feel this sense of wonder at the world, this sort of feeling of awe at what's happening. Or sometimes even like scientists, when they watch various natural phenomena, like a tsunami or a supernova, they might watch this event and get a sort of sense of awe at the world or a feeling of wonder at the world. Now, interpreting miracles as merely surprising, unexpected, lucky, or as awe-inspiring events has a number of problems in the current context. Now, look, you can use the word miracle or miraculous in any of these ways, but this use of the word miracle is going to be sort of relatively unimportant for considering their evidential value for religious matters. And this is because, first of all, this makes the notion of a miracle subjective. It depends upon our reaction to the event. So whether we're surprised about an event, that has nothing to do with the event itself. It has to do with us. Similarly, the fact that we feel a sense of wonder. I mean, one person might feel a sense of wonder at watching childbirth. Another person might not feel that same sense of wonder. And so it might be a miracle to one, but not a miracle to the other. All right. Moreover, these are events that happen often within the natural course of events. They're more rare than other events, and so we find them surprising, but they happen quite frequently in this way. So Hume says, nothing is esteemed a miracle if it ever happened in the common course of nature. It is no miracle that a man, seemingly in good health, should die all of a sudden, because such a kind of death, though more unusual than any other, has yet been frequently observed to happen. So when we look at nature, these kind of events, these events that we didn't expect, we are often surprised by what happens naturally. So even if lucky events are more unusual, sometimes we get lucky. It's just the way the world is. And so if these events occur frequently in the course of nature, then even if they're miraculous in some sense, they're not miraculous in any sense that would seem capable of providing evidence for the existence of anything supernatural such as God. So we don't need God to explain why someone won the lottery. We can explain they bought this ticket, this is the code that was sort of given to them, and this is how that code was randomly sort of assigned. So in order to get around this problem, someone might say, look, we should just build into the definition of miracle that it's caused by God or some supernatural agent, since we don't want it to be caused by nature. And so they just define a miracle as any event that is caused by God. But that definition would make the argument for miracles question-begging. It would mean the first premise just assumes the very thing it's trying to prove. On this definition, the claim that miracles have happened already assumes that God, or something supernatural, exists. When you say miracles have happened, you're saying an event caused by God happened. For the purposes of evaluating the supposed evidence for God from miracles, Hume offers the following attempt at a definition. He says, a miracle is any violation of the laws of nature. So the idea here would be take the law of gravity. If we see an event that violates the law of gravity, that would be a miracle. So let's look at this in a little bit more detail. What are some of the advantages of this attempt at a definition? Well, first of all, this definition would mean that the argument for miracles wouldn't beg the question, because when we say that miracles exist, we wouldn't be saying that those events were necessarily caused by God, although we'll see how you can get to that conclusion, but you'd just be saying that an event occurred and it violated these known laws of nature. Now, if one could establish the existence of an event, if we could show that an event occurred that was contrary to the very laws of nature, that would seem to provide evidence for the existence of something supernatural. Because the idea is, well, look, nature can't explain it. And then we might sort of presume, well, look, something can't come from nothing, so that should be something that caused that event. And since it violates the laws of nature, there can't be a natural cause of this event. And so whatever that cause is must be from outside of the natural world. So there are a couple problems for this kind of definition. First, people spoke of miracles before the idea of a law of nature was introduced. And so it looks like they must have been talking about something else. They must have had a different idea in mind when they described events as being miraculous, since they didn't have this concept of a law of nature. Also, this definition raises the question of what exactly do we mean by a law of nature, and what would it mean to violate a law of nature? So on Hume's own account, for instance, a law of nature is just some regular pattern of events that always occurs in nature throughout all time, past, present, and future. And on that view, it's not clear that it even makes sense for there to be a violation of a law of nature. Because as soon as you have a counterexample to a certain general pattern or regularity, well then, there is no more regularity, and it looks like it's not really a law of nature, that we got the law of nature wrong. And so in that view, these so-called miraculous events, they would not be evidence for God's existence. They would rather just be some reason to think that we got the laws of nature wrong. As you can see, a lot depends upon how we describe the notion of a law of nature and the idea of violating a law of nature. But a similar account of the idea of a miracle comes from St. Thomas Aquinas, and it holds that a miracle is any event that goes beyond the productive power of nature. In other words, a miracle is just described as an event for which there is no natural explanation for why that event occurred. So the argument for miracles wouldn't beg the question here, because when we say miracles exist, we're just saying there's no natural explanation that we have for why that event occurred. Now, these events seem to have a clear connection to providing evidence for the existence of some supernatural entity, such as God. Because the idea is, if they don't have a natural explanation, well then they must have some explanation, and so that explanation would have to be supernatural. Moreover, it avoids those thorny questions that we saw about the controversial concept of a law of nature. Since it doesn't posit the existence of laws of nature, it doesn't talk about violating laws of nature, it just says, look, we don't have any natural explanation for this event. That's what makes it a miracle. Right. Of course, now the question becomes, Is there good evidence that would make it rational for us to believe that any miracles, so these events without any natural explanation, do we have any reason to think that those kind of events have ever occurred? So that's it for this video. See y'all next time. Bye-bye.